3 hours of darkness. What really happened when the sky went black on Good Friday? Would you destroy someone's legacy just because you disagreed with their beliefs? At exactly 2:13 p.m. on Good Friday, the sky over Milltown Park turned an unnatural shade of gray. It wasn't a storm. It wasn't smoke. It was something else, an eerie stillness, like the world holding its breath. And standing at the center of it all was a woman in a crimson scarf, gripping a box cutter like a dagger, her fury louder than the silence surrounding her. They called her Hoa Karen. The installation had taken 3 years to complete. A collective effort by artists, scientists, and local schools. It spanned the park's central square. 17 freestanding canvases, each representing a stage in Earth's healing or decay, depending on how you walked the circle. Children had painted glaciers. Veterans had written poems in Braille. One panel even had a built-in solar panel that powered a speaker reciting nature sounds in extinct languages. Then Karen came, holding a complaint like a Bible and a rage that had waited years to erupt. "This is propaganda," she shouted as she marched in. "Climate change isn't real. This is indoctrination in my town." Her voice cracked with a conviction that silenced everyone but didn't convince anyone. Mike Nguyen, the lead coordinator, tried to approach her calmly. "Ma'am, this exhibit was approved by the town board. It's peaceful, educational. You're welcome to express your opinion but not destroy it." Karen's eyes flared. "Don't you lecture me. You're poisoning kids' minds." Her hand darted to her bag. Before anyone could stop her, she drew the blade and slashed through the panel showing the Amazon reforestation projecta section painted by the town's autistic art group, some of whom stood in the audience gasping, unsure why their world was being torn open. Someone screamed. Cameras came up, but no one dared intervene. Twisting the blade again through another canvas, this one with climate data contributed by the late Professor Eliza McCarthy, Karen knocked over a solar panel, and it sparked against the ground, cracking. A small fire hissed and died in the dirt. People rushed back, stunned. It wasn't just art. It was memory, work, and belief going up in metaphorical flames. Just as she raised her hand toward the final canvas, the one symbolizing global unity, with signatures from over 800 Milltown residents, a shout broke the tension. "Wait!" A young man pushed forward. Jordan, 16, the quietest of the interns, holding his phone high, trembling. "I have everything. From the start." She said this would make the libtards cry for real this time. She planned it. Karen froze. Gasps swept through the crowd. "Play it," someone whispered. And he did. There she was, recorded that morning at the grocery store, talking to a man later identified as her cousin. "They think I won't do it? Watch me ruin that eyesore. I'll be famous by sundown." Silence. Then Micah stepped forward again. This wasn't a protest. It was premeditated sabotage. But before anyone could say more, an older woman, gray hair in a bun, thick glasses, emerged from the watching crowd. Her name was Mrs. Caldwell, former mayor of Milltown and Eliza McCarthy's best friend. She'd been silent during the opening, sitting in the back, unnoticed. "She didn't just destroy art," Caldwell said in a brittle voice. "She desecrated a memorial. Eliza died raising money for this project. That panel was the last thing she touched before she passed. And you," she turned to Karen, whose face was blanching now, "you turned grief into spectacle." Karen opened her mouth, but words failed her. People were pulling out their phones again, not to record, but to block, to delete, to report. A siren wailed in the distance. "You should go," someone muttered, but it was too late. A park ranger stepped forward, hand on her radio. "Ma'am, I'm placing you under citizen's arrest for destruction of public property and intentional incitement of violence pending police arrival." Karen's voice cracked now, not with rage, but fear. "I didn't mean it like that. It was just a statement. A symbol." "A symbol of what?" Micah asked, not unkindly. "Of hate? Of selfishness? Of denial so deep it drowns everything in its path?" A child approached the wrecked canvas, paint smeared, torn, hanging like a wounded flag. "Why would she ruin our tree?" he asked softly. No one had an answer. The sky, still gray, seemed heavier now. What do you think? Was Karen expressing free speech or committing a hate-fueled crime? Should we tolerate all voices, even when they silence others through destruction? Let us know your thoughts. The officers arrived just 10 minutes later. By then, the crowd had doubled. Word spread fast in Milltown, faster than wildfire, faster than reason. Micah watched in stunned silence as Karen was handcuffed gently but firmly, her wrists trembling more from shame than restraint. "I know my rights," she muttered, eyes darting left and right. "This is political. You can't arrest me for disagreeing." Officer Hernandez, a seasoned veteran of community policing, kept his voice neutral. "Ma'am, you're not under arrest for disagreeing. You're under arrest for vandalizing over $50,000 worth of public property, violating town ordinances, and endangering a crowd of people in a protected space. That's not politics. That's a felony." Karen turned to the nearest phone camera. "This is what happens when you stand up to the woke mob. I'll go viral. You'll see." But the viral moment wasn't hers. It belonged to Jordan, the teen who had captured her rant, posted it to his private account, and within the hour it was everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, even Facebook, where the older Milltown folks watched in dismay. The hashtags rolled in like thunder. Art saboteur Karen strikes again, Good Friday darkness. Meanwhile, the destruction left behind was gutting. Canvas frames splintered. Paint smeared across the grass like fresh blood. The kids who had worked on the installation sat in silence, some crying softly, others staring at their ruined work as though expecting it to come back to life if they looked long enough. Micah dropped to one knee in front of a little girl named Zoe. Her piece had been one of the few untouched, a swirling depiction of ocean waves made entirely from recycled plastic bottle caps. "She tore my friend's paintings," Zoe whispered. "Why didn't she tear mine?" Micah shook his head. "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe because you painted the truth so beautifully, it scared her." But it wasn't just beauty that scared Karen. It was relevance. Later that evening, in the local community center where the town held emergency meetings, the public gathered. Karen had already been booked and released under bail, her arraignment set for the following week. But the damage had been done, and so had the reckoning. That night, someone unexpected stood up to speak. His name was Devin Rourke, a local contractor, single father of two, and until recently, an outspoken critic of the installation. "I used to think this stuff was a waste of time," Devin said, voice steady. "All this paint and poetry about trees. I thought it was just noise. But after what happened today, after watching a grown woman destroy what our kids built, I realized something. If you can look at a child's hope and feel rage, then maybe the problem isn't the art. Maybe it's the world you're trying to protect from it." The room was silent for a moment. Then someone clapped. Then more. By the end of the meeting, not only had the community voted to fully restore the installation, they launched a new initiative, Milltown Voices, a fund and forum for protecting civic expression and teaching media literacy to children and adults alike. Meanwhile, Karen's story kept unraveling. Within 48 hours, an anonymous tip led journalists to an old online group Karen had moderated for years, one promoting conspiracy theories, climate denial, and extremist rhetoric. Screenshots surfaced of her encouraging others to interrupt soft indoctrination by any means necessary. It wasn't just about art. It was a campaign, one she tried to bring offline, with a knife in her hand and a script in her head. Her job at the town's tax office? Gone. Her HOA position? Revoked. Even her longtime bridge club issued a formal disavowal. "We do not support or condone acts of destruction or ideological extremism," it read. But the worst blow came days later. Micah received a call from Professor Eliza McCarthy's sister, Margaret, who lived in Vermont. "I saw the news," she said, her voice trembling. "And I saw the piece Eliza contributed, the one that got slashed." "I'm so sorry," Micah said. "We'll rebuild. We'll protect her memory." "No," Margaret said. "That's not what I mean. You need to know that panel? The one with the Braille poem? It wasn't just a tribute. Eliza had been working with a foundation to get Milltown declared a protected educational landmark. That panel was the final piece of her proposal. If it had remained intact, The park would have received national funding next month. Micah's heart sank. So it's gone. Not entirely, Margaret said softly. There's a backup, but only if the town can prove it still honors the spirit of the work. He sat back, stunned. Karen hadn't just attacked art or expression. She had nearly cost the town its future. The next morning, Micah gathered the students, the artists, the teachers, everyone who had touched the project. They came together, not in grief, but with grit. And before the weekend was over, they began to rebuild. A twist came during one of the community volunteer sessions. As Micah was organizing brushes and replacement panels, he noticed a woman standing awkwardly near the food tent. Late 30s, plain jacket, hair up in a bun. She had the same eyes as Karen but softer, sadder. "I'm not here to defend her," the woman said. "I'm her sister, Naomi." Micah tensed. She wasn't always like this," Naomi continued. "After the divorce, after Mom died, she got pulled into these forums. She stopped listening. She got angrier. I tried to pull her out, but she thought she'd finally found people who understood her. I warned her, Micah. I really did." He nodded slowly. "That doesn't excuse what she did." "I know. I just wanted to say thank you for not letting her win, for showing that hope doesn't have to scream to be strong." Micah exhaled. "You're welcome to help." She smiled faintly. "I brought glue." Together, they walked back toward the circle, where the canvases were rising again. By Sunday afternoon, just 2 days after the destruction, the air in Milltown felt different. It wasn't just spring arriving early. It was resolve. The same patch of park that had witnessed chaos now thrummed with quiet, determined energy. Children returned, holding paintbrushes instead of balloons. Elderly volunteers offered tea and words of encouragement. Even the mayor, who usually avoided public messes, showed up in jeans and sneakers, helping steady the new frames. The wound was still raw, but the stitches had begun. Micah didn't speak much that day. He didn't have to. The people spoke through color, through shapes, through the way hands brushed gently across canvas as if asking permission before creation. Karen's destruction had united them in a way no planning committee ever could. But outside the park, the storm hadn't passed for Karen. The news outlets had dug deeper. Her online pseudonyms led to a trail of hate. Flagged Facebook groups, deleted Twitter threads, even a private chat where she once fantasized about dragging people back into reality by the hair if needed. A new video surfaced this time from 4 months earlier, showing her yelling at a school board meeting, accusing a teacher of environmental brainwashing. It didn't go viral the first time. Now it did. Then came the lawsuits. The town filed a civil suit for damages. The McCarthy Foundation, which had granted initial funding for the installation, filed another, alleging willful destruction of protected educational material. Even one of the local artists filed a restraining order after receiving threatening voicemails from Karen's burner number. Her house, once the pride of her cul-de-sac, became a spectacle. Reporters stood outside. Neighbors avoided her lawn. The flower beds she'd spent years pruning now wilted untouched. Inside, Karen paced. She had no job, no allies, and for the first time, no script to follow. Even her family had gone silent. Naomi had sent one message, 3 words long. "Please, just stop." She didn't reply. Instead, she opened her laptop, searched her name, watched herself go viral in real time. First, she tried to reframe it. She left comments under news posts. "This was staged. I'm the victim here. This was performance art." But the responses were brutal. Some cruel, others calm, but none supportive. Eventually, she stopped defending herself and started watching quietly. Hours passed. Then a day. Then 2. No new followers. No saviors. No rescue. Only the slow, sinking weight of recognition. Back in Milltown Park, the new installation was nearly done. This time, the artists had made one change. They left one canvas deliberately blank. It stood at the very center of the circle, untouched, clean, inviting. When a reporter asked Micah why, he answered, "Because we wanted to leave space for whatever comes next, whether it's reconciliation, reflection, or just a place for someone to stand and ask questions." The town loved it. Some wrote letters beside it. Others drew small symbols in chalk at its base. One little girl even taped a photo of her dog next to it. "This is Bubbles," she wrote. "He loves the planet too." Then the final twist came, and it came quietly. A week after the rebuild, just as the sky began to clear and the sun filtered softly through new blossoms, Micah received a package. No return address. No markings. Inside was a sealed manila folder. A letter paper-clipped to the front read, "For what it's worth, I remember what Eliza stood for. I didn't understand it before, but I do now. I never hated the earth. I hated how small I felt in it. I thought if I shouted loud enough, the world would make room for me. I was wrong. I'm sorry." No name, no signature, but Micah knew. Inside the folder was a copy of Eliza McCarthy's final research draft, complete, annotated, and containing one crucial missing element: her handwritten dedication to the town of Milltown. A page that had been torn out years ago, presumed lost. There it was, restored, as if rescued from the fire of anger by the very person who lit it. Micah handed the folder to Mrs. Caldwell that evening, saying only, "I think you should be the one to return this to the archive." Tears welled in her eyes. This means the grant can go through. "And more," he said. "It means healing doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it just knocks softly and hopes someone answers." Later that week, during a town hall, the new installation was rededicated. Devin Rourke stood up again, reading a piece his daughter had written. A poem about shadows and second chances. Jordan, the teen who'd recorded the video, was honored with a Youth Civic Award. He said few words, but accepted with the kind of quiet strength that came from knowing when to speak and when to listen. And as the sun dipped behind the trees, casting long golden shadows over the park, Naomi arrived once more, this time alone. She didn't say anything, just stood in front of the blank canvas. Then, slowly, she took a single sunflower from her coat pocket and taped it to the center. No note, no speech, just a gesture. People watched but didn't interrupt. They didn't have to. They understood. But as the lights dimmed that night and the park emptied, Micah sat quietly on the bench closest to the circle. He thought about forgiveness, how hard it was, how necessary. He thought about Karen not as a monster but as a warning, about how anger, if left unchecked, turns people into weapons against their own communities. He didn't know if Karen would ever return to Milltown, if she'd try to explain herself again, or disappear into obscurity. But he knew this: she would never undo what she did, and she would never own the story. The story now belonged to the town, to the voices that sang louder than hate, to the brushstrokes that came after the storm, and to the quiet hands that picked up what was broken and made something stronger in its place. 1 month later, spring had fully claimed Milltown. The cherry trees that bordered the park bloomed unapologetically, shedding pink petals like soft confetti over the installation. The air was warmer now, not just in temperature, but in tone. The park had become a destination. Schools brought field trips. Artists offered free weekend classes. The installation, once a local initiative, now had a name etched in a bronze plate at its entrance. "Light from the ruins, a community speaks." And at the center, the blank canvas still stood, untouched, unpainted, but not empty. People had started writing letters and pinning them around it. Some were hopeful, some angry, some confused, and some were directed to Karen. Micah read one that simply said, "You can't destroy what you don't understand, but you can choose to learn." Another read, "Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's building something better in spite of remembering." The town didn't forget, but it had, in its way, forgiven. Or maybe more accurately, it had moved on without bitterness. Then, on the eve of Good Friday, exactly 1 year after the first proposal for the installation had been approved, something unexpected happened. Karen returned. She didn't announce herself, didn't bring a film crew, no rant, no slogans. She stood quietly near the parking lot, wearing a faded hoodie and a plain backpack. A few people recognized her immediately. Whispers traveled fast, cautious and clipped. But no one approached. Not yet. Karen walked toward the blank canvas. She stood there for a long time, long enough that some people began to drift away, unsure if confrontation was coming. Micah was there. He watched from a bench under the willow tree. He hadn't seen her in person since the arrest. Hadn't wanted to, but now, as she stepped closer to the canvas, he stood. She noticed him. Her shoulders tensed. But she didn't run. "I'm not here to talk," she said quietly. "I'm not here to defend anything." Micah said nothing. I needed to see it." Still, he remained silent. Karen glanced at the letters surrounding the blank canvas. She reached into her backpack and pulled out something wrapped in brown paper. Slowly, almost reverently, she peeled it open. Inside was a small wooden carving, weathered, simple. It was a replica of a tree, just like the one Eliza McCarthy had once designed into her original panel. But this one had a crack running straight down the center. Karen placed it gently on the ground beneath the canvas. "I made that when I was 16, she said. "Back when I thought I'd be an artist too. Before I decided it was easier to mock things than to risk being part of them." Micah finally spoke. "Why now?" "I don't know," she said. "Maybe because silence is louder than applause. Maybe because I realized the only legacy I had left was what I broke." The wind moved softly between them. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said. I'm tired of being the villain." Micah looked at her, then at the carving. "You are," he said plainly. "You're the villain in this story, and maybe in others too. But that doesn't mean you can't decide what kind of ending you want next." Karen's lips trembled. She nodded once, then walked away. She didn't stay to be recognized, didn't turn back for redemption. She just left the carving, and whatever part of herself it once came from, beneath the canvas. Days later, a vote was held. Should the carving remain as part of the installation? Passed by one vote. Not because people forgot what Karen did, but because they understood something deeper. The installation was no longer just about trees or climate or even art. It was about truth, about courage, about what it meant to rebuild, about what it meant to tell the whole story, even the parts that hurt. So the carving stayed. A small plaque was added beside it. No names, just one line. "Some roots grow after the fire." The following year, Micah stood in front of a national audience at a conference on civic arts and community healing. His keynote was titled, "The Canvas Isn't the Enemy." He told the full story: the vandalism, the rebuild, the carving, the quiet, painful parts too. He ended his speech with a photo of the blank canvas still blank and said, "We left that space because we believe in second drafts. Not for everyone, not all the time, but for the ones who try." When he stepped off the stage, he found Naomi waiting. "She left Milltown," she said softly. "Moved somewhere no one knew her. She volunteers now. Helps kids with disabilities do woodwork. I don't think she tells anyone who she used to be." Micah nodded. "Maybe that's enough." Naomi smiled faintly. "She still checks the Milltown page. I think she's waiting to see if the carving's still there." "It is," Micah said, "and so is the space beside it. Back in Milltown, the canvas remains. And every Good Friday, people gather in a quiet circle as the sun begins to set. They don't speak much. They bring flowers, or paint, or poems. And every year, someone new adds something near the blank canvas. They don't paint over it. They honor it. Because that space, that empty square, holds more than color. It holds the weight of a question. Can something broken still be part of something beautiful? Now, we ask you, do you believe in redemption? Would you have voted to keep the carving? What would you have done? Share your thoughts below.